Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on Nasdaq. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Friday afternoon, we have Ben Jones, senior index specialist with Nasdaq Index Research, to discuss Nasdaq-100 performance and more cybersecurity in the news. Ben, it's great to see you as always. Let's take a look at the Nasdaq-100 and some of the performance metrics.
Yeah, I think it's important, right? Because as we move to the second half of the year, let's see where we are. And, one of the big themes this year has been the rotation out of growth and into value, out of, leaders like consumer discretionary and technology, and into some other industries like, let's say consumer staples and industrials and financials and energy. But what's important though is the Nasdaq-100 continues to kind of push higher, right? If we look at the last 3 months, we see that the Nasdaq-100 is actually outperforming the S&P 500, which has more of an underweight towards technology and more of an overweight to some of those other industries that have actually been outperforming recently. And the index itself, the Nasdaq-100, is up about 9%, outpacing the S&P 500 by just a few basis points there. The key is that this continues a trend of outperformance. So even though these themes and narratives may be running counter to where the Nasdaq-100 is tilted towards, it's still a resilient index, and it continues to push higher, right? Over the last 12 months, we see the index is up about 39% compared to 35% for the S&P 500. So even though there are, let's say some headwinds, so to speak, for this growth style box, we continue to see this index, which is comprised of the 100, largest Nasdaq-listed companies, excluding financials. It continues to push higher. And so I think it's important for investors to continue to be reminded of.
And Ben, let's talk about cybersecurity in the news. We actually just had Nasdaq-listed KnowBe4, one of their CEOs, on the show this afternoon, talking about social engineering, or the human element, and protecting ourselves in addition to our machines. And he was saying that the level of sophistication with phishing, whether it's text, email, it looks so real, and they're just getting more sophisticated. It really is a challenge.
It is, and it's a massive problem, and it's one that I think everyone is going to have to deal with, both individually and professionally going forward, whether it's making sure that you pay attention when you open up your emails and be more aware of what you're clicking on, whether it's opening up emails, clicking links, because everything looks so real these days. And also password management, right? Make sure that you do update your passwords and you do use all the lowercase and other characters. And it's a major issue, and it's one that is impacting a lot of different industries around the world and impacting various governments. I mean, just look at these headlines that are in the news where you see, a massive beef supplier just was basically hacked and held ransom and had to pay $11 million. Of course, with the Colonial Pipeline hack, you had the SolarWinds breach last fall. So you're getting to see governments really begin to take more action. President Biden signing the executive order to really kind of change the way that we view cybersecurity as a nation. You begin to see other countries like Italy and even some other organizations like the European Union begin to take a more proactive stance. But at the end of the day, it's all about the individual, right? So you as an individual, you'd also be proactive about how you handle your own personal cybersecurity, in addition to just everything else that's going on in the world.
All right, and Ben, let's take a look at your last slide here when we see the performance of how these cybersecurity stocks are performing relative to the overall Nasdaq-100 index.
Right, because it's an important topic right now, and it's one that is quite hot, right? I think everywhere you look, whether it's a magazine or a newspaper that you read or any kind of market-based website, it just seems to be a hack after hack after hack and breach after breach after breach. And so what we wanted to look at is, do we see a presence of cybersecurity companies, in the Nasdaq-100? And the answer is yes. There's about 5 kind of pure play, companies in the Nasdaq-100 that are really classified as important cybersecurity players. Now, that list could be expanded, right? If you look at some other, technology companies that do engage in providing some security services, but not like these ones: Okta, Splunk, Checkpoint, Cisco, et cetera. What's important though is that if you look at the last 3 months, we do see some leadership in here, right? Where we do see some names that are outperforming the Nasdaq-100 as well as the broader global technology benchmark. We have seen some slight underperformance in some areas, but overall, we continue to see some cybersecurity names within the Nasdaq-100 really push higher. That's possibly in response to what we've seen, where we've seen more interest in the cybersecurity space. And the good thing is that the Nasdaq-100 does have some companies represented in this theme.
All right, Ben, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.